Lisa sat in her corner office on the 15th floor, staring at the quarterly report spread across her mahogany desk. The numbers told a story she didn't want to believe. Employee turnover was at an all-time high, and customer complaints were pouring in faster than ever before. Her father, Robert, had built Peterson Cleaning Services from nothing. Starting with just a mop bucket and determination 30 years ago, he had grown the company into one of the city's largest cleaning operations. Now, at 62, he was ready to hand over the reins to Lisa, his only daughter, but these reports were keeping her up at night. "Dad, we need to talk," Lisa said, walking into Robert's office without knocking. She had always been direct, a trait he both loved and sometimes regretted instilling in her. Robert looked up from his computer, his reading glasses sliding down his nose. "What's eating at you now, sweetheart?" Lisa dropped the thick folder on his desk. "This. We're losing good people every month. Our best clients are threatening to leave. And according to this survey, our employees think management doesn't care about them." Robert flipped through the pages, his expression growing more serious with each sheet. "I had no idea it was this bad." "That's the problem, Dad. We're sitting up here in our comfortable offices while our people are struggling down there. When's the last time you actually talked to one of our janitors? Not at a company meeting, but really talked to them?" The question hit Robert harder than he expected. He tried to remember the last conversation he'd had with someone who actually cleaned the buildings. He couldn't. "We have supervisors for that," he said weakly. "And what if the supervisors are part of the problem?" Lisa shot back. "Look at this complaint from the Hartwell building. 3 different janitors quit in 1 month, all from the same site. That's not normal." Robert studied his daughter's face. At 28, Lisa had his stubborn streak and her mother's sharp intuition. She'd worked her way through college taking various jobs, never accepting handouts even when money was tight for her personally. She understood work in a way many business owners' children never did. "What are you suggesting?" he asked. Lisa took a deep breath. She'd been thinking about this for weeks, knowing her father would think she was crazy. "I want to go undercover. Work as a janitor for a few months. See what's really happening." Robert's eyes widened. "Absolutely not. You have an MBA from Northwestern. You're supposed to be learning the executive side of the business." "I can't execute anything if I don't understand what I'm executing," Lisa argued. "How can I make decisions about people's lives when I don't know what their lives are actually like? It's too dangerous. What if someone recognizes you?" Lisa pulled out her phone and showed him a photo. She'd already started planning this. Her long, straightened hair was now in tight curls. She'd practiced a completely different way of speaking, dropping the polished corporate tone she'd developed in business school. "I'll be Luna Martinez," she said. "Fresh out of community college, needs the job to pay rent. I've already created the backstory." Robert stared at the photo. His polished professional daughter looked like a completely different person. "Your mother would kill us both if she knew about this." "Mom doesn't have to know, not yet. Just give me 3 months, Dad. If I don't learn anything useful, I'll drop it and focus on the boardroom stuff." There was something in Lisa's voice that reminded Robert of himself at that age. The same burning need to understand every aspect of his business. He'd started as a janitor himself, working nights while taking business classes during the day. Maybe Lisa needed to understand that foundation too. 3 months, he said finally, "but you check in with me every week. And if anything feels unsafe, you're out immediately." 2 weeks later, Luna Martinez walked into the Peterson Cleaning Services training room. She wore a simple blue uniform, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her hands, usually soft from office work, were now deliberately roughened from practice sessions cleaning her own apartment. The training supervisor, Gary, barely looked at her as he handed out uniforms and equipment lists. "You'll be working nights at the Hartwell building downtown. It's a big contract, so don't mess it up. Your supervisor there is Patricia Miller. She's been with us 15 years, so listen to everything she tells you." Lisa nodded, keeping her expression neutral. The Hartwell building was exactly where she wanted to be. It was the site mentioned in those complaint reports, the place where 3 janitors had quit in rapid succession. That evening, she stood in front of the 40-story glass tower, her stomach churning with nervous energy. She'd read about the building in business reports, but she'd never actually been inside. As Luna Martinez, she was about to see it from a completely different perspective. The employee entrance was around the back, down a narrow alley that smelled like garbage and old cigarettes. The door was heavy and unmarked, leading to a basement area with concrete floors and fluorescent lighting that flickered intermittently. "You must be the new girl," said a voice behind her. Lisa turned to see a woman in her 50s, wearing the same blue uniform but with supervisor stripes on the sleeve. Her hair was gray and pulled back severely, and her eyes held no warmth. "Yes, ma'am. Luna Martinez," Lisa replied, extending her hand. Patricia Miller looked at the offered hand but didn't take it. "I don't do handshakes. Save that for the office people upstairs. You're here to work, not make friends." The first red flag went up in Lisa's mind, but she kept her expression neutral. "Yes, ma'am. Your shift starts at 6 p.m. and ends at 2 a.m. You get a 30-minute break at 10, not a minute more. The supply closet is locked and only I have the key. If you need supplies, you ask me. If you break anything, it comes out of your pay." Questions? Lisa wanted to ask about safety procedures, emergency contacts, and worker rights, but Luna Martinez wouldn't know to ask those questions. "No, ma'am." "Good, you'll be working floors 15 through 20 tonight. Janet will show you the ropes." Janet turned out to be a woman in her 30s with kind eyes and tired shoulders. As they rode the service elevator up to the 15th floor, she whispered, "Don't take Patricia too seriously. She's always cranky the first few hours of her shift." "Has she always been like that?" Lisa asked. "Pretty much. But the job gets done, and that's what matters to the company. Just keep your head down and do your work. The less she notices you, the better." As they stepped off the elevator, Lisa got her first real look at her new workplace. The office building was beautiful during the day, she was sure, with floor-to-ceiling windows and modern furniture. But at night, with most of the lights off and shadows stretching across empty cubicles, it felt like a different world entirely. Janet handed her a cart loaded with cleaning supplies, trash bags, and vacuum attachments. "Start with the trash, then vacuum, then dust the desks and clean the bathrooms. Each floor should take about 45 minutes if you move fast." "What happens if it takes longer?" Lisa asked. Janet's expression darkened slightly. "Patricia doesn't like it when we fall behind schedule. She says it makes the company look bad. Trust me, you don't want to disappoint her." As Lisa began her first night as a janitor, she quickly realized that everything she thought she knew about her family's business was wrong. The work was physically demanding in ways she hadn't expected. Her back ached after the first hour of bending over trash cans and pushing the heavy vacuum. Her hands, despite the gloves, were already getting rough from handling chemicals and scrubbing surfaces. But the physical challenge wasn't what shocked her most. It was the way people treated her. Office workers staying late didn't acknowledge her presence. She was invisible, a shadow moving through their world. When they did notice her, it was usually with annoyance if she was cleaning too close to their workspace or making too much noise with the vacuum. By midnight, Lisa's feet were killing her and she still had 2 floors to go. This was just her first night and she was already exhausted. How did people do this job for years? As she emptied a trash can in a corner office, she found herself looking out at the city lights. Somewhere up in one of those other buildings, there was probably another version of her father's company, with another owner's daughter sitting in a corner office, looking at reports and wondering why things weren't working. But that daughter wasn't down here seeing what Lisa was seeing. She wasn't feeling what Lisa was feeling. The first night was just the beginning. 2 weeks into her undercover mission, Lisa was starting to understand why employees were quitting. Every muscle in her body ached, and she'd developed a persistent cough from the cleaning chemicals. But the physical pain was nothing compared to what she was learning about how her company really operated. "Luna, you're moving too slow again," Patricia barked during the 3rd week. "I've been timing you. Floor 16 took you 52 minutes last night. The standard is 45. Lisa wanted to point out that she'd had to clean up a massive coffee spill and repair a clogged toilet, but Luna Martinez wouldn't argue with her supervisor. "I'll work faster, ma'am. See that you do. We have standards to maintain." The standards, Lisa was learning, were crushing the workers. Everyone was expected to clean more space in less time, with less equipment and fewer supplies. When the vacuum cleaner on floor 18 broke down, Patricia told the crew to just sweep the carpets until a replacement could be found. That was 3 weeks ago, but it was Janet who really opened Lisa's eyes to what was happening. During their 10-minute break one night, Janet pulled her aside in the supply room. "Can I trust you?" Janet asked, looking around nervously. "Of course," Lisa replied. "Patricia has been shorting our hours. We're supposed to work 8 hours, but she's been telling payroll we only worked 7.5. She says it's to account for our break time, but breaks aren't supposed to be deducted. Lisa's heart sank. This was wage theft, plain and simple, and it was happening right under her father's nose. Have you reported it? Janet laughed bitterly. To who, Patricia? She is the supervisor. The district manager. He's her cousin. HR? They're downtown in the fancy office building and they only care about the big complaints. What about going higher up? To the executives? Right, Janet said. I'm sure the CEO is dying to hear from some janitor about 15 minutes of pay. People like us don't talk to people like them. The conversation haunted Lisa for days. Here was a hard-working mother of two being cheated out of money she desperately needed, and she felt completely powerless to do anything about it. How many other employees were being treated the same way? Her questions were answered the following week when she met David Chen, one of the maintenance workers. David was 24 smart and had been trying to get promoted to supervisor for 2 years. I keep applying for advancement, he told Lisa during their break. I have better attendance than anyone on the crew. I've taken night classes in building management. But every time a position opens up, they give it to someone else. Maybe you need to be more patient, Lisa suggested, though she suspected she knew the real reason David wasn't getting promoted. Patient? David's voice rose slightly, then he caught himself and looked around. I've been patient for 2 years. You know who got the last supervisor position? Patricia's nephew, Tommy. Kid is 19, never held a job for more than 6 months and spent his first week calling in sick. But he's family, so he gets the promotion. Lisa felt sick. This wasn't the company her father had built. This wasn't the company she thought she was going to inherit. This was something else entirely. Something that had grown like a cancer while the executives stayed in their comfortable offices upstairs. The breaking point came during her 4th week on the job. It was a Wednesday night and the crew was already short-staffed because 2 people had called in sick. Patricia decided that the remaining workers would just have to cover more ground. We can't clean 20 floors properly with only 4 people, Janet protested. It's impossible. Nothing's impossible if you stop complaining and start working, Patricia snapped back. Corporate wants this building spotless for some big inspection tomorrow. If we don't deliver, we all look bad. Lisa found herself assigned to floors 20 through 25, normally a 2-person job. As she pushed her cart out of the elevator on floor 20, she was already exhausted from cleaning the lower floors. Her hands were cracked and bleeding slightly from the harsh chemicals despite the gloves that were supposed to protect her. The offices on these floors were bigger and more luxurious. Corner offices with leather furniture and expensive artwork. Executive bathrooms with marble countertops and gold fixtures. The irony wasn't lost on her that she was breaking her back to keep these spaces perfect for people who had no idea she existed. Around midnight, disaster struck. Lisa was cleaning one of the executive bathrooms when the toilet overflowed. Not just a little water on the floor, but a massive flood that quickly spread throughout the bathroom and into the adjacent office. The expensive carpet was soaking wet, and water was seeping under the door into the hallway. Lisa frantically called Patricia on the radio. I have a major flooding situation on floor 23. I need help and a wet vacuum immediately. Figure it out yourself, Patricia's voice crackled back. I don't have time to hold your hand. The water is spreading. It's going to damage the carpet and furniture. This needs professional cleanup. Then clean it up professionally. That's what you're paid for. Lisa stared at the radio in disbelief. This wasn't something she could handle alone with a mop and bucket. This needed specialized equipment and probably a restoration company. But Patricia had made it clear that she was on her own. For the next 3 hours, Lisa worked desperately to contain the damage. She used every towel and absorbent material she could find. She moved furniture and tried to vacuum up water with the regular vacuum, which was completely inadequate for the job. By the time she finished, she was soaked, exhausted, and her back was screaming in pain. But the worst part came the next day when she overheard Patricia talking to the building manager. Looks like the new girl made quite a mess last night, Patricia was saying. Probably didn't shut off the water properly when she was cleaning. These inexperienced workers, you know how it is. Lisa felt her face flush with anger. Patricia was throwing her under the bus for a plumbing problem that had nothing to do with her work. More than that, Patricia hadn't even bothered to come up and see what had actually happened. That evening, Janet pulled Lisa aside again. I heard about last night. Patricia's telling everyone it was your fault. It wasn't, Lisa said through gritted teeth. The toilet was already backing up when I got there. There was probably a blockage in the building's plumbing. I believe you. But that's not what matters. What matters is that Patricia needs someone to blame, and you're the newest person on the crew. This isn't right, Lisa said. No, it's not. But this is how it works here. Patricia protects herself first, the company second, and the workers not at all. That's why good people keep quitting. That's why David will never get promoted. That's why I'm looking for another job even though I need this one. That night, Lisa went home to her apartment and sat in her shower for 20 minutes, letting the hot water wash away the physical exhaustion of the day. But she couldn't wash away what she was learning about her family's company. She'd always been proud of Peterson Cleaning Services. Her father had built something from nothing, created jobs for hundreds of people, and earned a reputation for quality service. But the company she was working for now bore no resemblance to the company she thought she knew. The employees were being cheated, overworked, and blamed for problems they didn't create. Good workers were being passed over for promotions in favor of family connections. Safety concerns were ignored and complaints were dismissed. And at the top of it all, her father sat in his office looking at reports and wondering why turnover was so high. Lisa realized she was crying, though she wasn't sure if it was from exhaustion, anger, or heartbreak. Probably all three. She picked up her phone to call her father, then stopped. What would she tell him? That his company was falling apart? That the values he'd tried to instill were being ignored by the very people he'd trusted to carry them out? More importantly, what could he do about it? Fire Patricia? Then what? The problems went deeper than one bad supervisor. They were systemic, built into the way the company was now structured. Lisa put down the phone and made herself a simple dinner. She had 2 more months of this assignment ahead of her. 2 more months of being Luna Martinez, of seeing her family's company from the bottom up. She was starting to understand why the reports had looked so bad. But she was also starting to realize that fixing the problems was going to be much harder than she'd imagined. The next morning, she put on her uniform and went back to work. There was more to learn, and she had a feeling the hardest lessons were still ahead of her. By her 6th week undercover, Lisa had documented enough problems to fill a thick folder. But she knew she needed more than just her own observations. She needed to understand how deep the corruption ran and who else was involved. The answer came in the most unexpected way. "Luna, I need to talk to you," Janet whispered during their break one Friday night. "Meet me in the parking garage after shift." Level B2 near the stairs. Lisa's stomach tightened. Had Janet figured out who she really was? Had someone recognized her despite her careful disguise? At 2:15 a.m., Lisa found Janet sitting on a concrete barrier in the dimly lit parking garage. Janet looked exhausted and scared. "I can't do this anymore," Janet said without preamble. "I'm quitting next week." "What happened?" Lisa asked, though she suspected she knew. "Patricia found out I was asking questions about our missing hours. She pulled me aside tonight and told me that troublemakers don't last long at this company. She said if I wanted to keep my job, I'd better learn to keep my mouth shut." Lisa felt her anger rising. "She threatened you?" "Not in so many words. But the message was clear. And it's not just Patricia. I think this goes higher up." Janet pulled out her phone and showed Lisa a series of text messages. They were from someone named Mike Torres, the district manager. "Patricia sent him reports about our productivity issues," Janet explained. "Look at what he wrote back." Lisa read the messages, her heart sinking with each word. Mike Torres was instructing Patricia to tighten the screws on workers who asked too many questions. He suggested cutting hours for anyone who complained about working conditions. Most disturbing of all, he recommended finding reasons to fire employees who might cause problems. "This is illegal," Lisa said. "Of course it is. But who's going to stop them? They have all the power and we have none." Janet showed her more evidence. Timesheets that had been altered, safety reports that had been filed but never addressed, email chains between supervisors discussing which employees were troublemakers who needed to be managed out. "How did you get all this?" Lisa asked. Janet smiled for the first time in weeks. "Patricia left her computer unlocked one night. I've been taking photos of everything I could find. I was thinking about taking it to a lawyer, but lawyers cost money I don't have." Lisa stared at the evidence. This wasn't just a few bad supervisors making poor decisions. This was an organized effort to suppress workers' rights and maximize profits at any cost. And it was happening under her father's name in his company. What if I told you there might be another way? Lisa said carefully. What if someone higher up in the company could see this evidence? Janet laughed bitterly. Right, like anyone in corporate would care about a janitor's complaints. You might be surprised. Before Janet could respond, they heard footsteps echoing in the parking garage. Both women froze as a flashlight beam swept across the concrete walls. Who's down there? Called a security guard's voice. Janet quickly put away her phone. Just employees heading home, she called back. Parking garage closes at 2:30. You need to leave now. As they walked to their cars, Janet grabbed Lisa's arm. Promise me you won't tell anyone about what I showed you tonight. If Patricia finds out, I'll be fired before the end of the week. I promise, Lisa said, though her mind was already racing with plans. The next day was Saturday, and Lisa sat in her real apartment, staring at the photos she'd secretly taken of Janet's evidence. She'd been documenting everything she could during her weeks undercover, but this was the smoking gun she needed. She called her father, knowing he'd be in his office despite it being the weekend. Robert Peterson was old school that way, always available when his business needed him. Dad, we need to meet now. What's wrong? You sound upset. I am upset. Can you come to my apartment? And bring the files on Mike Torres and Patricia Miller. 2 hours later, Robert sat at Lisa's kitchen table, staring at the evidence she'd compiled. His face grew darker with each page he turned. This can't be right, he said finally. Mike Torres has been with us for 8 years. Patricia has 15 years of service. They're trusted employees. They're criminals, Dad. They're stealing from our workers and retaliating against anyone who complains. Robert picked up one of the altered timesheets. How did you get this? Lisa told him about Janet's discovery, carefully avoiding mentioning any names. One of the employees found Patricia's computer unlocked. She's been documenting everything because she was afraid no one would believe her otherwise. Why didn't she come forward through proper channels? Because the proper channels are part of the problem. Lisa's voice rose with frustration. Mike Torres is Patricia's boss, and he's actively encouraging this behavior. HR is 3 levels removed from the actual workers. These people feel like they have no voice. Robert was quiet for a long time, studying the evidence. Lisa could see the internal struggle on his face. These were people he'd trusted, people he'd promoted and rewarded over the years. What do you recommend? He asked finally. Fire them. All of them. Torres, Patricia, and anyone else who was involved. Then implement immediate changes to prevent this from happening again. It's not that simple. We need proper documentation. We need to follow procedures. If we fire people without following the correct process, they could sue us. Dad, they're already breaking the law. We have documentation. We have evidence. What more do you need? Robert rubbed his temples. I need to think about this. We need to be strategic. Lisa felt her heart sink. This was exactly what Janet had feared would happen. Even with overwhelming evidence, even when faced with the truth about what was happening in his own company, her father's first instinct was to protect the business rather than the workers. While you're thinking strategically, people are getting hurt, Lisa said. Janet is quitting because she's afraid of retaliation. David is never going to get the promotion he deserves. Other good employees are leaving because they can't stand working in this environment. I understand that, but no, Dad, you don't understand. You can't understand from up here in your office. You have to see it from down there. Robert looked at his daughter, seeing a passion and conviction he'd never noticed before. This undercover assignment has really affected you, hasn't it? It's opened my eyes to what our company has become. And if we don't fix it now, we're going to lose everything you worked to build. That Monday night, Lisa returned to work with a heavy heart. Her father had promised to look into the situation, but she could tell he was more concerned about legal liability than employee welfare. Patricia seemed unusually cheerful that evening, which immediately put Lisa on edge. Good news. Everyone, Patricia announced during the shift briefing. We're getting some new efficiency measures starting next week. Corporate wants us to increase productivity, so we'll be implementing some changes to our procedures. Lisa's blood ran cold. She had a terrible feeling she knew what these efficiency measures would involve. Janet, I need to see you in my office after the briefing, Patricia added with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Lisa watched Janet's face go pale. This was exactly what they'd both feared would happen. 20 minutes later, Janet emerged from Patricia's office with tears in her eyes. Lisa caught up with her in the supply room. What happened? I'm being moved to the day shift at the industrial complex across town, Janet said. Patricia says it's a better fit for my skills. The pay is $3 less per hour and the commute will cost me an extra 2 hours a day. Lisa felt rage building inside her chest. That's retaliation. It's illegal. Of course it is. But what am I going to do about it? I need this job. I have kids to feed. You could fight it. File a complaint with the labor board. Janet shook her head. And then what? Even if I win, which is a big if, I'll never get another job in this industry. Patricia has friends at every cleaning company in the city. She's already made it clear that crossing her is career suicide. Lisa watched her friend gather cleaning supplies with shaking hands. Janet was trapped and they both knew it. The system was designed to keep people like her powerless, afraid to speak up even when they were being wronged. That night, Lisa made a decision. She couldn't wait for her father to work through his corporate procedures and legal concerns. She couldn't watch good people get destroyed while executives worried about their liability. It was time to stop being Luna Martinez and start being Lisa Peterson. It was time to use the power she'd been born with to protect the people who had no power at all. But first, she needed to gather one more piece of evidence. She needed to catch Patricia and Mike Torres in the act. With witnesses present and no possibility of denial, the confrontation was coming, and Lisa intended to be ready for it. Lisa knew she had one chance to catch Patricia and Mike Torres red-handed. She'd overheard Patricia on the phone scheduling a meeting with Mike for Thursday night at 10 p.m. to discuss problem employees. This was her opportunity. She arrived at work that evening with a small recording device hidden in her uniform pocket. Technically, she wasn't sure about the legality of recording without consent, but given what she'd witnessed, she was willing to take the risk. At 9:45 p.m., Lisa positioned herself in the supply closet next to Patricia's office. The walls were thin, and she could hear everything that happened in the adjacent room. David was working nearby, restocking cleaning supplies. You hear that? David whispered, pointing toward Patricia's office. She's been on the phone all evening talking about cleaning house. Think we're getting new equipment? Lisa's heart pounded. David had no idea how accurate his unintentional pun was. Probably just work stuff, she replied, trying to sound casual. At exactly 10 p.m., Mike Torres arrived. Lisa had seen him a few times during shift changes. A tall man in his 40s who always wore expensive suits and treated the janitors like they were invisible. Patricia, good to see you. Mike's voice carried clearly through the wall. How are our productivity numbers looking? Better since we implemented the new policies. The workers are definitely more focused when they know their jobs are on the line. Lisa pressed the record button on her device and moved closer to the wall. Good. Corporate is breathing down my neck about labor costs. We need to squeeze every dollar of efficiency out of these people. I've been working on that. Remember Janet Rodriguez, the one who was asking questions about her timesheet? The troublemaker. What did you do with her? Patricia laughed. Transferred her to the industrial complex. Cut her pay, doubled her commute. She'll either quit within a month or learn to keep her mouth shut. Perfect. What about the others? David Chen is still pushing for that supervisor position. I keep telling him he's not ready, but he's getting persistent. Can't have that. Any excuse to write him up? I'm working on it. He's actually a good worker, which makes it tricky. But I'll find something. Maybe attendance issues, maybe a safety violation. Lisa felt sick listening to them casually discuss destroying people's careers. But she kept recording. What about the new girl? Luna something. Martinez. She's been asking too many questions lately. Wants to know why we don't have better safety equipment. Why the vacuum cleaners never get repaired. I think she might be another problem. Handle it. We can't afford to have these people getting ideas above their station. The conversation continued for another 10 minutes, with Patricia and Mike discussing various ways to suppress worker complaints and maximize productivity through intimidation. They talked about falsifying safety reports, manipulating schedules to avoid paying overtime, and blacklisting former employees who had filed complaints. By the time they finished, Lisa had recorded enough evidence to destroy both of their careers. But more importantly, she'd heard something that made her blood boil. Oh, one more thing, Patricia said as Mike was preparing to leave. That flooding incident on floor 23? I blamed it on the new girl, Luna. Building management bought it. They're thinking about charging her for the carpet damage. How much? Mike asked. About $3,000. It'll come out of her paychecks over the next year. Lisa nearly gasped aloud. They were planning to make her pay for damage she hadn't caused. Damage that was clearly the result of a building maintenance issue. This was the final straw. As Mike Torres left Patricia's office, Lisa made her decision. She wasn't going to wait until morning to talk to her father. She wasn't going to follow proper procedures or worry about legal technicalities. These people had destroyed enough lives. She waited until Patricia left for her rounds, then quickly moved to the main office area. David was there emptying trash cans near the supervisor's desk. "David, I need to ask you something," Lisa said, her heart pounding. "If you could change things here, what would you do?" David looked surprised by the question. "What do you mean?" "The way workers are treated. The way promotions work. The way complaints are handled. If you had the power to change it, what would you do?" David glanced around nervously. "Luna, you shouldn't talk like that. If Patricia hears you, forget Patricia. I'm asking you, what would make this a better place to work?" David studied her face for a moment, then seemed to make a decision. "Honest supervisors who promote based on merit, not family connections. Fair wages that don't get mysteriously reduced every month. Safety equipment that actually works. Management that listens when workers have legitimate concerns. What if I told you that change might be possible?" "I'd say you're dreaming. People like us don't get to change anything. We just survive." Lisa pulled out her phone and showed David the recording app. What if people like us had evidence of what's really going on? What if we had proof of the illegal stuff? David's eyes widened. "Luna, what are you doing? If they catch you recording, they already want to fire me anyway. Patricia and Mike just spent 10 minutes discussing how to get rid of me." She played back a portion of the recording, watching David's expression change from fear to anger to determination. "They said all that? Every word. And there's more. Much more." David sat down heavily in a nearby chair. "I knew things were bad, but I didn't realize they were actively plotting against us. It's not just plotting. It's systematic oppression. They're stealing wages, retaliating against complaints, and blacklisting people who try to stand up for their rights. So what do? Even with evidence, we're still just janitors. No one listens to janitors." Lisa took a deep breath. This was the moment of truth. What if I told you that someone in corporate would listen? Someone with real power to make changes? I'd ask why you think that. "Because that someone is my father." David stared at her in confusion. "What?" Lisa quickly explained who she really was and why she'd gone undercover. David's initial reaction was disbelief, then anger. "You've been lying to us this whole time? Playing some kind of game?" "It's not a game, David. Everything I've experienced here, all the problems I've documented, they're real. The only difference is that I have the power to do something about them. So this is what rich people do for fun? Come slum with the workers?" Lisa felt his words like a physical blow. "No, that's not what this is. I came here because our employee reports were terrible and I needed to understand why. I stayed because I realized how badly our people were being treated." David studied her face, looking for signs of deception. "If you're really the owner's daughter, prove it." Lisa pulled out her real phone and showed him a photo of herself with her father at a company Christmas party. Then she showed him her real ID, Lisa Peterson. David read aloud, "Peterson Cleaning Services. That's right. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to walk into corporate headquarters and play this recording for the board of directors. Patricia Miller and Mike Torres will be fired before lunch." David was quiet for a long moment. "What about the rest of us? What happens to our jobs?" "Your jobs will be safe. Better than safe. You'll have real supervisors, fair wages, and a voice in how the company operates." "And Janet? What about what they did to her?" "Janet will get her old position back with back pay for the wages she lost. And Patricia's nephew Tommy will find himself looking for a new job." David looked at the recording device in Lisa's hand. "Can I hear the whole thing?" Lisa played the entire recording. With each revelation, David's anger grew. By the end, his hands were clenched into fists. "How long has this been going on?" he asked. "Based on what I've seen, probably years. But it ends now. What do you need from me?" "I need witnesses. People who can testify about what they've experienced. I need documentation of every incident, every stolen wage, every act of retaliation." "You'll have it." "And Lisa?" "Yeah? Thank you. For caring enough to see what was really happening down here." As Lisa gathered her cleaning cart for the last time, She felt a mixture of sadness and determination. Tomorrow she would walk into her father's office as herself, with enough evidence to clean house in the most literal sense possible. But tonight, she was still Luna Martinez, and she had work to finish. The building needed to be clean for the people who would arrive in the morning, the office workers who saw her as invisible. Soon, she hoped invisible workers would be seen, heard, and respected. The revolution was about to begin, and it would start in the executive suite. Friday morning, Lisa walked through the front doors of Peterson Cleaning Services headquarters for the first time in 3 months. She'd traded her blue janitor's uniform for a sharp business suit, but the calluses on her hands and the knowledge in her heart remained. Her father's secretary, Mrs. Williams, did a double-take when she saw Lisa approaching. "Lisa, my goodness, you look different. Are you feeling all right, honey?" Lisa smiled. 3 months of physical labor had changed her appearance more than she'd realized. She was leaner, stronger, and carried herself with a different kind of confidence. "I'm feeling better than I have in years, Mrs. Williams. Is my father in?" "He's in the conference room with the district managers. They're reviewing the quarterly reports." Perfect timing, Lisa thought. Mike Torres would be in that room. "Please ask them to stay. I have something important to present." 5 minutes later, Lisa walked into the conference room carrying a thick folder and her laptop. 7 men in expensive suits looked up from their reports, coffee cups, and casual conversation. Her father's face showed relief and concern. "Lisa, thank God you're safe. I was starting to worry about this undercover project of yours." "The project is complete, Dad, and I have findings to share with everyone." Mike Torres, sitting halfway down the table, looked confused. "I'm sorry, who is this?" "Gentlemen, meet my daughter, Lisa Peterson. She's been working undercover in our operations for the past 3 months." The room fell silent. Lisa could see Mike's face going pale as he began to understand the implications. "Good morning, Mike," Lisa said, making direct eye contact. "I believe we've met before, though you might not remember me. I was going by Luna Martinez at the time." Mike's coffee cup clattered against the table as he set it down with shaking hands. Lisa connected her laptop to the conference room's display screen. "For the past 12 weeks, I worked as a janitor in the Hartwell building, supervised by Patricia Miller and overseen by District Manager Mike Torres. What I discovered there represents the most serious violation of our company values I could have imagined." She began with the wage theft, showing altered timesheets and documented evidence of workers being cheated out of hours. The room grew increasingly uncomfortable as she presented case after case. "This isn't just poor management," Lisa continued. "This is systematic oppression designed to maximize profits by suppressing workers' rights." When she played the recording of Patricia and Mike's conversation, the room erupted. District managers began talking over each other, some defending Mike, others expressing shock. "Enough," Robert's voice cut through the chaos. "Mike, is this true? Have you been instructing supervisors to retaliate against workers?" Mike Torres had gone from pale to red to pale again. "Robert, you have to understand the pressure we're under. Corporate keeps demanding higher profits with lower costs. We were just trying to meet your expectations." "By breaking the law?" Lisa shot back. "By destroying people's lives? These are just workers," Mike said desperately. "They're replaceable. The business has to come first." The silence that followed was deafening. Lisa watched her father's face cycle through emotions she'd never seen before. Disappointment, anger, disgust. "Get out," Robert said quietly. "Robert, please, let me explain." "Get out!" Robert's voice shook the conference room windows. "You're fired. Security will escort you from the building. You have 15 minutes to clean out your desk." As Mike Torres fled the room, Lisa turned to address the remaining district managers. "This problem isn't limited to one site or one manager. I need to know who else was aware of these practices. I need to know how widespread this is." For the next 2 hours, Lisa presented her evidence while the district managers squirmed in their seats. By the end of the meeting, 2 more managers had been fired, and the rest were on notice that immediate changes were required. But Lisa wasn't finished. "Dad, I need to address the workers. They need to hear from leadership that things are changing." That afternoon, Lisa stood in the Hartwell building's main lobby, looking out at a crowd of janitors, maintenance workers, and security guards who had been called in for an emergency meeting. Patricia Miller stood near the back looking confused and worried. Janet was there too, having been temporarily reassigned back to the Hartwell building for the meeting. When she saw Lisa in her business suit at the front of the room, her eyes widened in recognition and understanding. "Good afternoon, everyone," Lisa began. "Some of you know me as Luna Martinez, your co-worker for the past 3 months. But my real name is Lisa Peterson, and I'm the daughter of the company's owner." The reaction was immediate and mixed. Some workers looked angry at the deception. Others seemed hopeful. Patricia Miller looked like she might faint. "I went undercover because our company was failing its most important asset. You. The people who do the actual work were being ignored, mistreated, and cheated. I needed to see that reality for myself." Lisa walked closer to the crowd, maintaining eye contact with as many workers as possible. "What I found was unacceptable. Workers being cheated out of wages, good employees being passed over for promotions in favor of family connections, safety concerns being ignored, complaints being met with retaliation instead of solutions." She turned to look directly at Patricia Miller. "Patricia Miller, you're fired. Effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building." Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "You can't do this. I have 15 years with this company. I have rights." "You had responsibilities," Lisa replied. "You chose to ignore them. The rights you're claiming are the same rights you denied to the workers under your supervision." As security escorted Patricia from the building, Lisa continued addressing the group. "Mike Torres has also been terminated, along with 2 other district managers who were complicit in these illegal activities." David Chen raised his hand tentatively. "What happens to us now? Are we all going to lose our jobs?" "No," Lisa said firmly. "Your jobs are secure. But more than that, your working conditions are going to improve dramatically." Lisa outlined the immediate changes: restoration of stolen wages, proper safety equipment, fair promotion practices, and the establishment of anonymous reporting systems for future complaints. Janet Rodriguez will be returning to her original position with full back pay. David Chen will be promoted to supervisor immediately, with a pay increase to reflect his new responsibilities. The crowd began to murmur with hope and disbelief. These were people who had learned not to expect good news from management. "But here's the most important change," Lisa continued. "Going forward, this company will have regular check-ins between executive leadership and frontline workers. Not just surveys or reports, but actual conversations. We will never again be so disconnected from the reality of our employees' experiences." After the meeting, Janet approached Lisa with tears in her eyes. "Why?" Janet asked. "Why did you really do this?" Lisa thought about the question. "Because I realized that a company is only as good as how it treats its most vulnerable workers. If we can't take care of the people who trust us with their livelihoods, then we don't deserve their trust. But you could have just implemented changes from the top. You didn't have to actually work beside us." "Yes, I did. If I hadn't experienced what you experience every day, I would have made the wrong changes. I would have fixed the symptoms instead of the disease." Over the following weeks, Lisa worked 18-hour days implementing reforms throughout the company. She established worker advocacy programs, transparent promotion processes, and regular leadership accessibility sessions. The changes weren't just cosmetic. Within 2 months, employee turnover dropped by 60%. Customer satisfaction scores reached all-time highs. Productivity actually increased as workers felt valued and heard. 6 months later, Lisa was officially promoted to Chief Operating Officer. Her first official act was to establish a policy requiring all executive-level employees to spend at least 1 week per year working frontline positions in different parts of the company. "How do you feel about taking over the company eventually?" her father asked one evening as they reviewed the latest reports. Lisa looked at the numbers showing improved worker satisfaction, reduced turnover, and increased profits. "I feel ready, but more importantly, I feel responsible." "Responsible for what?" "For remembering that every decision we make up here affects real people down there. For never forgetting that Luna Martinez taught me more about business in 3 months than my MBA did in 2 years. Robert smiled. "Your mother would be proud. I think Luna would be proud too." As Lisa looked out her office window at the city lights, she thought about all the office buildings where workers like Janet and David were cleaning, maintaining and securing the spaces that kept the business world running. Tomorrow, she would make sure those workers knew they were seen, valued, and heard. It was the least she could do for the people who had taught her what real leadership meant. The company her father had built was stronger now, not despite treating workers better, but because of it. And Lisa intended to keep it that way.